to come back on stage, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah! I started in theater, and the beauty of theater is that it's a collective experience, and so much of what I love about storytelling is it feels personal, but then it becomes universal when you get to connect with other people about sort of that experience where you're like, I loved that character too, and wasn't that hairstyle awful, and you know what I mean, just all those things, and it brings us together as a community. And so getting to, I always say, like, at things like this, I'm on the wrong side of the table. Like, I'm a fan first, and it's just wonderful to get to spend time with folks who, you know, we all love the same things, and sometimes there's incredible insights that I'm like, ooh, write that down, that's a good movie idea. You know, it's really fun.
Can you take us into the process of becoming not just a fan, but such a huge part of Star Wars now?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I just have a huge part of it. I'm someone who's infiltrated and they can't get rid of me. It's such a huge honor and joy, and the people who work on it feel the way that, you know, all of us feel about Star Wars and the community of Star Wars that exists. You know, it's like the 501st and all the incredible work that they do, and you know, it's a really inspiring community. So it's meant a lot. It's also meant a lot to me personally, because George Lucas was and is a mentor to my dad, and has been since my dad was 17 years old. And my mom and dad have been together since they were 16. So it's you know, my parents and George, they're all very close. And so to get to grow up in an environment where I'm, you know, looking up to this person so much and seeing how my parents look up to him, and get to be a small part of continuing that story is just, it's wonderful. Skywalker Ranch is sort of everything that you would think it would be. George was a single dad for many, many years, adopted his children as a single father, and his kids are all the sort of like same age as the kids in my family. There's 4 kids in my family and 4 kids in his, and so my time at the ranch was, you know, it was with family and his family, and we're running around and sneaking cookie dough and you know, running past screenings of things and posters and story meetings, and just absolutely magical and privileged, and something that I'm so grateful for. And you know, I loved my childhood, and if any of the work that I do can be a reflection of how grateful I am for the experiences that I've had as you know, a person growing up in this industry, I hope it can be that. And puppetry is one of the most ancient forms of storytelling. Is the fact that legacy is, I mean, the story and how the story goes is that the next movie we had 5 animatronics. The final movie we had like over 20 animatronics. You know, it's an incredible, powerful art form that needs to be sustained. I love to kind of elevate myself to the character, right? Like, the character is very much so outside of myself. I love to research. It gives me a chance to learn new things. I love learning new things. I love having new challenges, sometimes, you know, physical challenges, things that you're like, oh, I can't do this, and if I do this, then if I do this part, then I'm gonna learn how to do this, you know? So that's the joy for me, getting to really immerse myself into the world. You know, with Spider-Man, I loved Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man. I went nuts over Spider-Man 2. Like, great, I was like, what is happening here? Like, it was so cool. And so when I got the part of Gwen Stacy, that was when I was really learning about Gwen Stacy. It wasn't in advance of that. And so since then, you know, I'm in it for sure. So so much of it is about the discovery of, you know, what you don't know, and then just leaning into that, and also trusting experts as well. You know, if you're consulting, if you're doing something that's outside of something that you've experienced, making sure that you are getting really sound and constant advice from someone whose experience is closer to that. But to make a very long story short, my parents would bring me to movies of which I would not react to, and the first movie that I ever reacted to, I also said my first sentence, and it was E.T. And I was just glued to the screen, and my dad was like, yeah, you pointed at the screen and you went, E.T. fly, and my parents were like, what? Like, it just absolutely was really thrilling for them, and I always, as a kid, I just loved being on set. I loved being around that experience. I loved the sort of the fantasy come to life. I think it was a very unique perspective where it was like magic on this planet is possible. You just have to get all the right people together and they need to figure it out, you know? And then suddenly there's like Baby Yoda in front of you. So it's movies have played a huge role in my life. Steven Spielberg has played a huge role in my life, and yeah, that's the E.T. story. Every single day was about like, okay, I gotta warm up the ankles. I had all these like concoctions that I would like put on my legs and arnica and all this stuff in case I twisted my ankle, and then just, you know, in terms of the shoe, we had a ballet strap over the top of the shoe, so I could just basically run on my tippy toes. And then when in terms of what you were saying, in terms of it being my choice, basically the idea was that I needed to look like someone who would die in the jungle, and so, you know, put me in heels and like a white gauzy dress. And that made a lot of sense. And then the twist is she doesn't die, she actually saves the day, and in heels. And there was the point when I'm at the scene where we're at the waterfall where the boys jump over.
She loves it. That's right. It's a great scene.
That was the scene where it was like, okay, this is the moment where we need to decide whether or not I keep my heels on or if I proceed, you know, without my heels. And we had kind of shot things in a way where continuity-wise we could delay the decision to that point. So we had already been shooting for weeks and weeks. And we got there and it was like muddy, and there were like pebbles and stones and like maybe some worms in the ground. And they were like, do you want to take off your shoes, Bryce? I was like, nah. Jeff Goldblum is the jazziest human being I've ever met. Like, he has like there's just swagger, but it's like from jazz. And he's incredibly brilliant and incredibly thoughtful. My assistant, who I was working with during Jurassic World Dominion, was a huge Jeff Goldblum fan. And she went up to him on the first day when we're all kind of meeting each other. And he says, she goes, I just wanted to say, Mr. Goldblum, I'm such a fan. He goes, oh, thank you so much. What's your name? And she goes, oh, it's Sonia. And he goes, Sonia Aurora? Sonia Aurora Lepe? That's her name. She was like, he memorizes everyone's name before he starts the movie. He goes down the list and memorizes everyone's name. The thing about Jurassic is, you know, this is about what if dinosaurs and human beings coexisted on the planet. This is a very, very big question that Michael Crichton asked and that Steven Spielberg carried on and translated into a visual medium. And I am very excited that the story is continuing, and the story is continuing in a way that for me, just as a fan, like I don't know anything about it, but I'm like, ooh, it feels like intimate. We're on an island, and you know, the human beings are totally outnumbered. Like this is, I love that, and I'm craving that, and I'm excited about it. And the people who are involved, I do know a lot of them, a lot of the actors who are hired, they're crazy Jurassic fans. you know, and it's like, so gotta spread the joy, and you know, it's gonna be a continuation of what was created all those decades ago. And so if I was to ever work in the Star Wars universe as you know, as an actor, I would just hope that it's with a filmmaker who I can just give everything to. You know, there's just like no hesitation, no question. You just kind of go for it and lean in. I mean, trust me, the moment that The Mandalorian and Grogu was announced, I texted John Babb and I was like, friendly reminder, I'm also an actor. So, you know, it would be great to, I would love for Babb to direct me one day. You know, that would be very cool.
At the celebration of NASA's 40th anniversary, so that would have been 1998, in Washington, D.C. I remember being introduced to him at breakfast before later that day we were on a panel about how the media influences the public's interest in space exploration. And it was Bill and his childhood idol, Don Herbert, of Watch Mr. Wizard. Who remembers Don Herbert? Well, he was Bill's idol. And then, of course, Bill went on to create, for the next generation, to coin a term, the next show that popularized science for young people. And he is, as you know, an icon and a hero to about 2 generations of Americans now. And my dear friend, 3 years ago this month, I officiated his wedding. That's how good friends we are. The great thing about Stargate versus working on Star Trek is the producers were much more easygoing about the language. Star Trek is set in this imaginary future. The producers were very careful about the language. We couldn't change a word without permission because they didn't want it to sound colloquial or of the moment. They wanted it to be this sort of future speak, right, where no references to any, current idioms in language. Stargate, because it's a secret military program happening in the present, there was no such fear of that. So whereas on Star Trek we couldn't change a word, Stargate, if I'd done a take and as scripted, I'd say, hey, can I say something different? They'd say, go ahead, and then if they liked the joke, they would thank me after. That is entirely unlike Star Trek. Star Trek, if you wanted to be spontaneous, you had to be spontaneous 5 days in advance. Please welcome Bill Nye!
So what we've covered so far.
One thing I'd like to throw out is, look at here, let's please tell us about the Planetary Society and what is it about it that propels your mutual passions?
So, are there people here who are not members of the Planetary Society? I mean, it's okay, you're a known friend. Just kidding. You should all join. So the Planetary Society was started in 1980 by Carl Sagan, who felt that public interest in space exploration was very high, but government support of it was not especially high. Same is true today, people. And so we have 42,000 members around the world. Maybe after today, 43,000. Am I right?
How do I recommend getting students, present students inspired, or
Go to your class.
Yeah. Well, it feels to me like there's a concerted effort to dumb down our populace, to dumb us down and to make us not care. And we've got to stand up to that. We've got to fight for that. I mean, how do you say we don't need to support education? We want to continue to lead in technology and innovation, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to lead anymore with these cuts in education and lack of support for science. It is not only short-sighted. What's worse than short-sighted? Stupid and short-sighted. So yes, you have to make your students understand how important those subjects are, but you can only do that if you're standing in front of your students. If they cut some of your classes or whatever, then what do you do? And again, I go back to what Bill said. You have to speak up to your members of Congress. That's one way to do it. Another way is to go out and join a protest that is appropriate to your point of view.
I hearken all the time to this document, the Constitution of the United States, which is now available in paperback.
It's about time.
To the article, so what you say?
It's about time.
Yes, it's yeah, it's about time they reprinted it in paperback. You go to Article 1, which is about the role of the legislature, Congress, and then you go to Section 8, which is kind of the miscellany. Like we're going to have, by the way, Section 8, what they call Clause 7, is we will have a postal system and post roads. It's in the Constitution. We are not privatizing the post office. Article 1, Section 8, what they call Clause 8. Congress is to promote the progress of science and useful arts. It's in the Constitution. And the storytelling of science fiction, to me, is among the useful arts. So everybody participate. That's what I'd say, participate in government, this year especially.
Is that the voice that you typically use? Is that your NP, your radio voice?
Most people don't know this, but the whole time I was on Blues Clues, my real job, in a way, was I was a voiceover guy. So I did commercials and stuff.
Steve, what did you do most recently? Is there something?
I'm the guy who says, Snickers satisfies. So yeah, this is like my voiceover voice. And I would never do anything like character-y, like he can do like anything. Like, I can't do any of that. I was just a guy at the end of commercials who said like, do the thing with the stuff. I will buy from him.
What did I admire? You know, I'm still trying to figure that out. No, I think what I really admire about Steve and Donovan is how they made you feel important and how they made you feel at ease at being yourself. And one of the first things they told me when they pulled me aside when we were filming, I think my first week, and they said, I'm not sure if anybody told you this, but you know, you got the job because they love you. And so don't ever feel like you have to replicate or repeat anything that we've done. Just be yourself and explore that and have fun. And so that, that's what they mean to me. And now that I've known them for like almost 5 years, I have so much disrespect for them. Back then, they meant a lot.
I think Joe taught me the listening is such an amazing, important part of the show, and I need to incorporate it more in my regular life to this day. So that's an ongoing lesson. I suppose I would say, if there's something that I learned from my gift. But I think the way Joe interacts with the world and with his friend, he kind of he lives life like full bore. He lives life like he means it, and he goes for it, and he'll overshoot, and then have to be reined back in and helped out by his friend often. But I think, I think sometimes it's good to live life full speed, I suppose.
I think you misunderstood the question. I think the question is what did we admire about each other's.
Oh, each other's?
Yeah, you made that all out.
So that's where the disrespect comes in. You see that listening?
No, I thought the question was what did I admire about my character.
For you, Donovan, sure.
I'd like to talk about myself some more.
I'll go because Donovan's not here.
I think it was hey.
So I overshot the answer, and I need to rein myself back in. I would say I admire Josh's just pure joy and the way things come out of his face through song in a way that's magical and amazing. And I really admire Steve's stillness. Yeah, I think it's impressive. Yeah. So.
The three of us, Josh is just the most purely ridiculously talented. He can do anything. There's really not an art form he can't do. And he can sing, he can dance, and he's an amazing photographer.
He can push like a madman.
It is kind of obnoxious. And but just watching him work and just watching him internalize the physical he just does stuff that we cannot do. Josh is like a Blue's Clues host with a cheat code.
Technically, I didn't have a cheat code, and it was you guys, so that, I did have a cheat code.
Donovan, I admire his blatant narcissism. As we can see on display here. I think Donovan is the best physical comedian of the three of us. He's very Jim Carrey. He's very and his intelligence that he brings to it. And it was written very much more like a game show, right? It was supposed to be like a game show for children. Which one is the circle? Do you know? You guessed it, right? And for whatever reason, at the audition, I just made it weird. I just made it this really personal, conspiratorial. Which one is the triangle? No. And then I paused, and then there was this pause, and there was this silence. And that silence became the thing, right? Most kid shows talk to the camera, most of them. But we listen to it, right? And that silence has a voice, right? And in that silence there's presence. And that presence was you guys. Right? So that's what worked about it. And what I would do, I know you guys had your own thing, but I would listen to the silence.
To play the scene, you don't know the answer. We're never quizzing you at home. So us as an actor, whenever we're asking the question, we're seriously asking the question, and we can't move on unless you participate. So one of the things that I did was I would, at the time, I didn't have a nephew yet. So I would imagine one of my friend's kids, whenever I would ask them a question. And I so admire children because whenever you ask them a question, they think about it. Unlike me, and I just start talking, and then I kind of forget why I started talking. Correct me if I'm wrong, what is the most important thing that you've learned as being the face of Blue's Clues? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, listening. definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's useful in any given situation. It's been described. Was this? Was it Maya Angelou? Yeah, no. Like the same. It's the best gift you can give another person.
Yeah.
Fred Rogers.
Fred Rogers. Frederick Bartholomew Rogers.
I think Blues Clues has taught me, I mean, I could go on and I won't, but I mean, has taught me so much. Steve has become my greatest teacher in so many ways, and it's so great. But fundamentally, what we did on Blues Clues, you and I and these guys, is we were on a joyous investigation of our own lives. We were leading an examined life. And we were doing it with song and with friends.
There are a few that come to mind. Of course, Blue, because we must kiss the ring. He was the best and will always be the best character in the entire show. But I'm very partial to Side Table Gerard and Mr. Saltman's Silver Soap.
I don't know. There's still mannerisms that I carry with me. Like whenever I point for something, I'm always like, it's like finger and thumb in one particular direction. And I started doing that on the show. Like, because I wrote like pointing, I was like, what do I do with my other hand? But even my own nephews, I was Uncle Joe for years before I became Uncle Donovan, and now they're in college, so you'd think they'd learn.
For years was which one is me, is the same name. And there's the Fred Rogers paradigm, wherein if you're on a children's television show and your name is the same as your real name, then you are actually that guy. And I was not actually that guy, and so it was hard. I actually did struggle with that. It was a bit of an identity crisis for me. But Steve, with it italicized with an exclamation point, and Steve are now totally friends, which is wonderful.
I wish that I could be more like Josh on the show more often, and I love that character. It's such a huge part of myself. Yeah, I don't know. It's a piece of me.
I think that if your audience is going to be predominantly children as opposed to predominantly adults, I have to check my humor. To be honest with you, because I like to
Yes, he does.
shove some stuff out there every now and again. That's just like it might be funny, but it may not be right.
It's so important to play because that's what you're doing. You're having an imaginary playtime. And so watching them do that was so valuable and so fun. I wanted to get up there too. So that was one of my favorite parts about watching them.
I'm amazed at how wonderful these two people are with music. Both of them can play guitar, and they both hear music in a much more complex way than I ever will, and I'm fascinated by that.